For the record, both assistant state attorneys are present, all four defense counsel. Mr. Rodgers, state's ready.
Sure.
Defense is ready to proceed.
Yes, sir. I would officially invoke the rule of sequestration and withdraw my previous objection as to the misuse of remaining for the other testimony as she's been released now.
Okay. All right, bring them out. Please be seated. I'll ask our jurors again, did you follow my instructions not talk about the case among yourselves with anybody else or look up any of the people or places involved? Even if you did so inadvertently, now would be the time to raise your hand and let me know. For the record, no jurors lifted their hand. State, next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. State calls Sandra Hoskins.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
State.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please state your full name for the record?
Sandra Hoskins,
And can you spell your last name for the court reporter, please?
Hoskins.
And Ms. Hoskins, what do you do for a living?
I'm a medical assistant.
And were you a medical assistant in June of 2015?
Yes.
And were you working for a medical practice or a medical facility of some kind?
Yes.
Which, what was the name of the medical facility or practice you were working for?
Restorative Health and Healing.
Sorry, did you say that?
Restorative Health and Healing Center.
And whose medical practice is that?
Dr. Teresa Sievers.
And how long did you work for Dr. Seavers?
Around 7 years.
Let me turn your attention specifically to June 29th, 2015. Were you working that day?
Yes.
And at that time, what were your duties in the practice?
Assisting Dr. Seavers with the patients.
And how was it that patients would visit her medical practice? Did they come on a walk-in basis or did they make appointments?
Scheduled appointments.
And in order to assist Dr. Seavers with patients, did you also have to know what the schedule was for patients that were visiting her practice?
Yes.
And what time did Dr. Seavers back then typically start scheduling visits with her patients?
9 a.m.
And so everybody would have to be at work by at least 9 a.m. to receive the first patients as they arrived?
Correct.
Were you at work by 9 a.m. on June 29, 2015?
Yes.
Were there other members that worked, other employees that worked for Dr. Seavers' practice at that time as well?
Before 9 a.m.
They were all there?
Yes.
What time did Dr. Seavers typically arrive for work?
Either a little before 9 a.m. or 9 a.m.
Was she typically punctual when visiting with her patients, when seeing patients?
Yes.
Was she punctual on June 29th, 2015?
No.
So Dr. Seavers did she have a visit with a patient scheduled for 9 a.m. on the 29th?
Yes.
And did she show for that visit?
No.
When she didn't show for that visit, did you make efforts to locate her?
Yes.
And what did you do to try to locate her?
I called her cell phone.
And when you say her cell phone, was it her personal cell phone?
Yes.
Did she answer?
No.
Did anybody answer?
No.
When you didn't get her on her cell phone, did you make any additional efforts to locate Dr. Seavers?
I called Mark Sievers.
And who was Mark Sievers?
My boss as well.
So Mark Sievers also worked with the Restorative Health medical practice?
Correct.
Well, was Mark Sievers a medical doctor in the practice?
No.
He performed some other duties for the practice.
Yes.
And how did you call Mr. Sievers? Did you call him on a cell phone or at home? How did you get him?
On his cell phone.
And were you able to make contact with him?
Via text.
What was the purpose of making contact with Mr. Sievers via text?
To locate Dr. Seavers.
And what time of the, I'm guessing this is still in the morning when you're trying to locate Dr. Sievers?
Yes, sir.
Was it the 9 o'clock hour or at some other time in the morning?
Repeat that question, please.
Was it during the 9 o'clock hour or at some other time in the morning?
It was a little after 9.
Were you able to learn from Mr. Sievers where Dr. Sievers was?
No.
Did Mr. Sievers appear to know that she had not arrived at work when you communicated with him?
Objection to speculation.
Overruled.
Did he appear to know that she had not arrived at work when you communicated with him?
Rephrase that question.
I'll ask a better question.
Yes, please.
When you contacted Dr. Seavers, Mr. Sievers, did you inform him that Dr. Seavers had not arrived at work?
Correct.
Did Dr. Seavers ever arrive for work on June 29, 2015?
No, sir.
Is the Restorative Health medical practice located in Lee County?
Yes.
Or was it? Does the practice still exist?
No.
So back then it was in Lee County.
Yes.
Did Mr. Sievers, you mentioned earlier that Mr. Sievers had some kind of a role in the medical practice. Did he work in the medical practice or did he work somewhere else?
He would work from home and sometimes in the practice.
So sometimes he would report to the office with everybody else and work, and other times he'd work from elsewhere.
No, sir. Off hours.
Off hours?
Correct.
Your Honor, I attend to the witness.
Defense.
Good morning, Ms. Hoskins.
Good morning.
In addition to being, was Mr. Sievers also the office manager?
Yes.
Were you aware that Mr. Sievers was also a registered nurse,
LPN.
LPN?
Correct.
That's your understanding? Okay. But he didn't act as a nurse in the practice while you were there, did he?
No.
I have any other questions?
This witness to be retained or released?
The witness is free to go, Your Honor. Thank you.
No objection. Defense.
No objection.
You're free to go. Thank you, ma'am. Next witness.
State calls Dr. Mark Petrites.
please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
While the witness is coming forward, I'll let both sides know that when I asked if there was any objection to releasing the last witness, they couldn't hear the response, and so that's okay. Just make sure everybody speaks up for our jurors. Okay. And that's just in the abundance of caution to make sure nobody may need that witness at a later time. State.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Can you please state your full name for the record?
Dr. Mark E. as in
sorry to
Edward.
interrupt.
Can you hear me?
One moment, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
Okay. Ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Sir, can you please state your full name for the record?
Yeah, it's Dr. Mark E. as in Edward, Petrites, Petrites.
And Dr. Petrites, what kind of doctorate do you hold?
I'm a medical doctor with specializing in general surgery.
And are you still a practicing surgeon?
Not presently, no. Kind of retired.
You retired? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Back in June of 2015, were you still practicing?
Yes, I was.
And let me ask you, do you know Dr. Teresa Sievers, or did you know Dr. Teresa Sievers?
Yes, I knew her very well.
How long had you known Dr. Seavers up until June of 2015?
I originally met her in around 1995. She was doing a medical school rotation at the hospital where I was doing my general surgical residency. So I had contact with her for about 3 months or so at that time. After that, I had no contact with her until probably around 2007, at which time we ran into each other and started a professional relationship and personal.
And when you started the professional and personal relationship, do you have family as well?
Yes, I do.
And are you married?
Yes, I'm married and we have a son.
And did you and your wife get to spend time with Dr. Sievers and her family from time to time?
Yes.
Did you know Mark Sievers?
Yes, I did.
What was your relationship with Mark? What was your relationship with Mark Sievers?
Was not very close and personal. We were more close to Teresa.
So it's safe to say the relationship between your two families was based on your relationship with Dr. Sievers?
Correct.
Did your wife also have a relationship with Dr. Sievers?
Yes, she did.
Did she have a relationship with Mark Sievers?
A very casual one, I would say.
So Dr. Sievers was also closer with your wife than your wife was with Mark Sievers?
Yes.
At that time, was it? Did you and Mark Sievers spend time together?
Very rarely. I could count on one hand how many times that him and I did anything together.
Did the two of you ever make phone calls to one another, to do favors for one another?
Never to do favors for each other. Just making contact about either a dinner get-together or something like that. That was it.
Those get-togethers, were they just between you and Mark, or did they usually involve your families and spouses?
Oh, no, it was always families, spouses, yes.
On June 29th, 2015, at approximately 9 o'clock in the morning, do you recall what you were doing?
Around 9 o'clock in the morning, I was getting ready for work, and I went to the post office, and that's where everything kind of started.
And when you say everything kind of started, how did everything start?
So I was inside the post office, and I had received a voicemail from Mark Sievers that his wife, Teresa, had not showed up to work, and asking if I could go check on her. From there, as I was leaving the post office, that's when I was listening to the voicemail, and I just went directly to her house. On doing so, I had called him to ask him, what's up, why is this, why are you calling me about this? And
Well, and let me stop you there and ask you a question.
yes,
How far was the post office from Dr. Seavers' home?
less than 2 miles.
And you've been to the Seavers' home before,
Oh, many times, yes.
so you knew how to get there from the post office.
Correct. Yes.
And then you started to tell us that you were able to, after you listened to Mr. Seavers' voicemail, you called him back to find out what's going on. Why is he calling you?
Correct.
All right. Had he ever called you and asked you to go check on Dr. Seavers before?
No, never.
Okay, so you call him back and you said you were saying, what's up? Why are you calling me?
Correct.
Did you get an answer from him?
He said that she didn't show up at work, that he had tried calling her on her cell phone, but there was no answer. He believed that he said the phone was dead, and that he had traced it to the house, which I found odd, that you could trace a dead phone to the house. I don't know how the iPhone Where Am I app works, I don't know.
So on the one hand, Mr. Sievers was saying he couldn't reach Dr. Sievers because he believed her phone to be dead.
Correct.
But on the other hand, he was saying he'd somehow tracked
Right.
her phone.
To the house, yes.
But the phone was dead.
Correct.
Okay. You said you started to head towards the house. Did you actually arrive at the house?
Yes, I did.
And when you arrived at the house, were you still talking to Mr. Sievers?
As I was pulling it up the driveway, yes.
And did you get any guidance from him on how to check on Dr. Sievers?
He wanted me to go directly into the house, which I thought was odd. I did not feel that was appropriate. I said, I'm going to go to the front door. He said, just go inside the garage door. And I told him I wasn't going to do that. And so I didn't.
Let me ask you a question about that. Now,
Yes, sir.
you mentioned earlier that your family and the Sievers family were friends.
Correct.
You didn't have the kind of relationship where you could just show up and walk in to their
no.
home?
No, I wouldn't do that, no.
And they couldn't show up at your house and just walk in?
I think Teresa probably would.
Okay.
Because she felt that comfortable with us. So,
She was that bold as well?
yes.
Certainly you wouldn't, you or your wife wouldn't show up at the Sievers house and just kind of walk in without knocking on the door, ringing the doorbell.
No, no.
Did you have any concerns about just kind of walking into the house if Dr. Seavers was inside?
Yes, for personal reasons, I didn't know what she was, if she was home or what she was doing. She may have been having breakfast on the treadmill or in the bathtub. I didn't know. And also, I know that she has a weapon. She has a gun.
So you had a safety concern about surprising Dr. Seavers?
Correct. Correct.
All right, so Mr. Sievers is giving you guidance on, he's urging you to go into the house, as you
Correct.
stated. Did you make an attempt to get into the house?
First, I went to the front door and I knocked on the door. In fact, I kind of pounded. There was no answer. I tried using the front door handle and it was locked. And from there, I went to the garage.
Were you able to see inside the house from the front door?
Yes, I could.
And did you see anything?
I saw their two dogs were kind of in the foyer area. A light was on in the kitchen, but there was no other activity.
So you didn't see anybody walking around inside?
No, I did not.
All right, so after you tried to nod the front door handle and weren't able to get in the front door, did you make an attempt to get into another door?
Yes, I went to the electric garage door. He had, on his voicemail message to me that morning, he said, just go in the garage door. The code is 1313, push enter. And so I did that, and the garage door opened up.
And when you say he, it was Mr. Sievers?
Mr. Sievers, yes,
Right.
I'm sorry.
So Mr. Sievers gave you the code to put the door up in the garage?
Correct.
Okay. When you put the door up, what was the first thing you observed?
Both vehicles were in the garage. His vehicle, Mr. Seavers' vehicle, the blue van, was on the left side, and her and Teresa's white Mercedes station wagon was on the right side.
Did you see anything else in the garage?
Just a garage full of garage stuff.
Stuff?
Garage stuff, yes.
What about the dogs? Were the dogs, you said you saw them by the front door. Did you see
Yes.
any of them in the garage?
So as I walked in between the two vehicles to walk towards the entryway to the house, one of the dogs had run out on the opposite side, on the driver's side of the van, and ran out through the open garage door.
Now, the other times you'd visited the Sievers home, had one of the dogs ever run out?
No.
Did the dog run to you or run past you?
Well, he ran right past me. He just ran out.
Was there anything else unusual that you observed in the garage as you entered the garage?
Well, as I was walking between the vehicles and then towards the front of the van to go into the house, there was a suitcase that was on the ground right directly in front of the van. And there were some articles that looked like travel type articles spewing about around that area.
Let me stop you here, and I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit 3A. It's already been shown to council. Do you recognize State's Exhibit 3A?
Yes.
What is it?
That's the front of Dr. Seavers' house with the garage door open.
Was that a true and accurate representation of Sievers' home?
Yes.
And does that accurately depict how it appeared that day when you went there?
Yes.
Your Honor, this time I move to admit what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit number 3A and the evidence as State's 3A.
No objection.
We'll show it admitted.
Published?
Yes, sir.
Let me get a little bit dimmer. A little bit. Okay, I'm going to hand you, Dr. Petrites, I'm going to hand you my laser. And just make sure not to zap anybody with it.
Okay.
There's a little button, little silver button on the side there.
Gotcha.
Can you, showing the jury 3A, can you point to the area of the garage where you entered?
I entered right here, in between the van and the motorcycle.
Okay. And the dog exited on the opposite
On the
side of the van?
opposite side of the van, over this way here.
Okay. And did you see where the dog went?
He went down the driveway.
Was there anything else that you observed in the garage as you entered the garage?
No.
Were you able to see inside the house from in the garage?
No.
Okay, why not?
From in front of the van, you can't see inside of the house, not until you get to the stairway leading into the laundry room can you
Okay.
see into the house.
Now, The dog that ran past you,
Correct.
was that one of the same dogs that you had seen by the front door glass?
Yes.
So somehow the dog had access to the garage.
Correct.
Was there a door that connected the garage to the main part of the house?
Yes, there was, and it was already open when I got there.
So you didn't open it.
No, I did not.
And some dogs can open doors. I don't know whether
my-
the dog opened it. Could have happened. But
Could
the door
have.
was open.
Correct.
Did you have an opportunity to go through the door?
Yes, I did.
The first question is, from that vantage point, as you go through the door, were you able to see anybody moving around inside the house?
No, I did not.
Were you able to see Dr. Seavers at all?
No, I could not.
Did you call out her name, see if she was there?
Yes, I did.
Did she answer?
There was no answer.
And when you say no answer, you mean nobody answered.
Nobody answered.
So did you then have an opportunity to proceed into the interior of the home?
Yes, I did.
And was that from that garage entrance that you told us about?
Yes.
When you got inside the home, what did you see?
As I went through the laundry room, it was plain and obvious on the kitchen floor, there was a hammer that was laying there.
Is that the first thing you saw was the hammer?
Yes.
Did you see anything else or anyone else on the kitchen floor?
Not until I entered into the kitchen.
And what else did you see?
When I entered the kitchen,
Yes.
I saw, as I was first going in, I saw blood on the floor to the left. And as I stepped in further, then I saw my friend Teresa on the floor by the refrigerator.
I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit number 1.
I don't think you gave it back.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right here. I'm going to show you what's been previously entered as State's Exhibit number 1. Is that Teresa Sievers?
Yes, it is.
Is the person depicted in Exhibit number 1 the same person who's laying on the floor in the kitchen?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now, you told us earlier that you're a medical doctor, you're
Yes,
a
sir.
trained surgeon.
Correct.
You said you saw blood. Were you able to determine where this blood might have come from?
Well, initially when I saw her on the ground and I saw a hammer, I thought maybe she was trying to hang something on the wall or something like that and hurt herself. But the amount of blood that was there was way too much for something like that. I approached her more closely and I saw how her head had been bashed in.
Were the injuries that you saw to Dr. Seavers' head consistent with life?
No. She had a depressed occipital skull fracture. I'm pointing to the back of my head here. And
Your Honor, objection.
State,
I'm not sure what the objection is.
you guys want to approach?
So, Dr. Seavers had an injury to the back of her head.
yes,
Was she moving?
no.
Did you have an opportunity to check for a pulse or check for any respiration?
Yes, I checked for signs of life, and she had none. She was dead cold.
When you say dead cold, what does dead cold mean?
Her body was cold and lifeless, very much like if you've ever been to a funeral with an open casket and touched your loved one's hand. Just, that's how they feel. That's how dead cold feels.
Is the Sievers home located in Lee County?
Yes, it is.
After you determined that Dr. Seavers was lifeless, did you have an opportunity to call for help?
First, I yelled into the house, and then I yelled for her daughters, because I didn't know if they were still in the house.
So, Mr. Sievers, when you had spoken to him earlier, hadn't made any reference to you about whether the daughters were home with Dr. Seavers or with him wherever he was?
The morning of this, no, he did not make reference.
So you thought the two young girls might have still been in the house?
I thought they could have been, yes.
When you called out, did anybody else answer?
There was no answer. The house was silent.
And when nobody else answered, did you make an attempt to find out where the two daughters were?
Yes, I did. I thought that someone could still be in the house, even though it was quiet. It was a very eerie feeling being inside the house with that atrocious finding. I stepped outside the house and I called Mark Sievers directly and asked him if the girls were with him, if the daughters were with him.
And did he confirm for you that they were with him?
Yes, he said that they were with him.
Then did you get an opportunity to call for help?
Yes, I did.
Did you call 911?
Yes, I did.
And how long after calling 911 did anybody show up?
Less than, well, the fire department had showed up while I was still on the phone with 911, so I'd say 3 to 5 minutes.
So you were still talking with the 911 dispatcher when the first responder showed up?
Correct.
And were you able to observe whether they were able to do anything to help Dr. Seavers?
No, I did not go back in the house with them.
But she never walked back out with them?
No, she did not.
And they never brought her back out on a gurney or anything like that?
No, they did not.
At some point, did a crime scene investigation start at that home?
I believe that it had started while I was still there, I think almost instantaneously.
And did you cooperate in the crime scene investigation?
Yes, I did.
Did you provide any biological samples to law enforcement?
They took they call it a buccal smear, which is a swab of the inside of your mouth for DNA analysis.
At the time, back in June of 2015, you told us earlier that you were a surgeon.
Correct.
Were you working in the Sievers medical practice, or did you have your own practice?
No, I had my own separate practice.
And where was your practice?
It was in the Bonita Community Health Center, which is probably about 5-6 miles away from my house.
And you mentioned earlier that you had a personal and professional relationship with Dr. Seavers.
Correct.
What was the professional relationship like?
So when she first moved to town, she had purchased a medical office from another physician who had moved on. Because she is a medical doctor and I'm a surgeon who operates on things that are found by medical doctors, that became the basis of our professional relationship. Her patients may have something like a gallbladder problem or a breast cancer or something, and she would refer them to me to take care of.
Your Honor, I tender the witness.
Defense.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. Petrites.
Good morning.
You had mentioned that you and your wife both enjoyed a personal relationship with Dr. Seavers.
Correct.
But not necessarily with Mark Sievers, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. But you had been around him quite a few times in social settings,
Correct.
had each other's cell phone numbers, that sort of thing?
Correct.
Okay. In fact, were you aware that he had more than one cell phone?
Yes.
Okay. Found that a little odd, did you?
Yes, I did.
No other questions. Thank you.
Is this witness to be retained or released?
He's released by the state.
No objection? You're free to go, doctor.
Thank you.
Next witness.
State calls Adam Hughes.
Yes, sir.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Can you please state your full name for the record?
Adam Lucas Hughes.
And how do you spell your last name for the court reporter?
Hughes.
And, sir, I see you're in a uniform.
Yes, sir.
What kind of uniform is that you're wearing?
This is a lieutenant for the Bonita Springs Fire and Control and Rescue District.
And that's where you work?
Yes, sir.
Did you work there in June of 2015?
Yes, sir.
Were you a lieutenant then as well?
No, sir.
You got promoted since then?
Yes, sir.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
On June 29th of 2015, did you have an opportunity to respond to a call at the Sievers home in Bonita Springs?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What was the nature of the call?
It came in as a cardiac arrest.
What does a cardiac arrest mean?
Cardiac arrest is, in short term, means the heart is not beating anymore. The heart has taken its last beat. There's no more blood circulation.
So you got called out for an instance where somebody's heart wasn't beating anymore.
Yes, sir.
How long after you received the call? Well, where were you when you received the call?
We were in Station 1, our station.
And how far is Station 1 from the home on Jarvis Road?
Approximately 3 miles, 4 miles.
And do you recall the address for the home that you responded to?
No, sir.
Just that it was on Jarvis Road.
Yes, sir.
And what kind of vehicle did you use to get to the home?
We responded in a Pierce fire truck.
And when you got to the home, did you arrive at the home?
Yes, sir.
Was anybody there?
Yes, sir. There was a gentleman in the driveway.
And what was he doing in the driveway when you arrived?
He was talking on a cell phone.
Do you have an idea of who he might have been talking to?
All I know is I heard him say the fire department's here.
And did you have an opportunity to find out where the emergency was? You responded to the area for a cardiac arrest. Did you have an opportunity to figure out where it was?
No, sir. We get off the truck, exit the truck, grab our gear, and we just head into the house.
Okay. And so you believe that the cardiac arrest was inside of the house?
We approached the gentleman and we asked where she was, if he thought she was deceased, and he was still kind of frantic on the phone. He didn't really pay us too much attention because he was talking. There was multiple conversations going on, and so we just entered through the garage door.
And you said you grabbed your gear. What kind of gear did you grab?
We have a Zoll monitor, we have an airway bag, and we have a med bag that we bring in with us.
What's a Zoll monitor?
A Zoll monitor is a cardiac monitor that you do 12 leads with, you do capnography with, blood pressures, pulse oximetry.
So that Zoll monitor can tell you whether or not a person is still alive?
Yes, sir.
And how do you said you grabbed your equipment. Was it in some kind of a container or a bag?
Yes, sir. Yeah, they're in encapsulated bags.
So you said you went into the house carrying the equipment.
Yes, sir.
How did you get into the house?
Through the garage door.
And as you entered the house, did anybody move anything as you were walking through the garage?
As we were entering the garage, Acting Lieutenant Mendez was in front of me, and there was a luggage in front of the door, at least in front of our path to the door. And Lieutenant Mendez just slid it slightly to the side.
So when you say we entered the house, it was you,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hughes, Lieutenant Mendez. Was anybody else present
Yes, sir.
with you in the house?
Firefighter Coburn.
Okay. And Mr. Coburn.
Yes, sir.
And were you able to locate the person in the home who needed help?
Yes, sir.
Where was that person located?
As we opened the door, we could see feet. So right as we opened the door through the laundry room into the kitchen, you could see feet. And we just entered in. We made our way to the threshold of the laundry room kitchen door.
So the laundry room is directly adjacent to the kitchen?
Yes, sir.
So in order to walk into the kitchen, do you have to walk through the laundry room to get there?
Yes, sir.
So when you said you went to the threshold, was the threshold the entrance from the laundry room into the kitchen? Is
Yes,
that what
sir.
you
The
mean?
door jamb. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
And what did you see when you got to the threshold?
Acting Lieutenant Mendez was in front of me. He peered in, and I come up behind him, and I kind of just peeked around to the left side also. We saw the patient down on the ground, and there was injuries incompatible with life.
Were you ever able to employ your Zoll monitor to?
No, sir. We have the discretion that if there's injuries incompatible with life, that we don't. It's not protocol, sir.
And you mentioned earlier having an airway bag of some kind. Is that something that helps a person breathe?
Yes, sir.
Were you able to use that
No, sir.
for the same reason?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what did you do after you figured out that the injuries were incompatible with life?
We turned around and exited.
At any point, did law enforcement show up?
Yes, sir.
Did they show up before or after you arrived?
They showed up after we arrived.
Your Honor, I attend to the witness.
Defense.
Mr. Hughes,
Morning.
I have no questions for this witness, Judge.
Witness to be retained or released.
He's free to go, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any objection? You're free to go. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you, sir.
Next witness.
Big Holskin Van Wass.
Your Honor, may we approach just very quickly?
Sure. You ready? The next witness is going to be quite lengthy, so then rather than break it up and have you sit through part of it, then go to lunch and come back, we're going to take an early lunch. I'm going to ask that you not talk about the case among yourselves with anybody else or look up any of the people or places involved. Don't read anything or watch any TV on it, and we will see you again at 1:15. Please be seated. Anything further from the state until we come back? From the defense? You guys going to do that now, or are you going to come back earlier? I just want to make sure the courtroom's open for you guys.
I was going to do it, defense counsel's pleasure. I was thinking to do it now, and then we would just be back.
Okay. All right, we'll be in recess. You can come on up. And the answer is yes.